Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Ted, and today I'm joined by
Nerdarchy Dave.
It's that time again, recap and review Critical Role Campaign 2, Episode 13. Be careful, there's spoilers. Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so Critical Role Campaign 2, Episode 13, I believe.
13.
And this was a long one. This one was over 4 hours long. Most of that was all content, all game. And not only that, this is the first time I really feel like I went through a full episode and was like, there was stuff going on the whole time. Like, a lot of times it feels like there's a lot of filler because that's what D&D games are, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens that doesn't really matter that much. But this one, like, started with a certain tempo, and it was just, like, hit after hit after hit of things that matter to the campaign and to the characters. And it just kept rolling.
It did seem to keep me, on the edge of my seat a little bit more than normal. And when it was over, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, to be honest, guys, when it was over, like, I stopped and I just started making notes because I'm like, there is no way I'm going to remember all of the stuff that transpired. This was just a packed episode.
I'm like, I would have been hard pressed to remember all of it. And I'm super thankful that we had the list to work with because it's like, oh, yeah, that was a good point. Oh, yeah, that was a good point, too. And, I listened to this Friday morning. We filmed this Saturday. You listened to it Friday night. So, the stuff is a little bit fresher for you.
Yeah. So that being said, they started right off with basically initiative, with combat. They fight a figure, and the armor that this humanoid is wearing in the sewers, and just the way it was described to me was kind of like an insectoid, and it really just made me
with hooks on it.
Yeah, it just made me think of the parademons. And I kind of like mixed up in my brain the flying wizards. So I'm like, it's got bug wings. I know it. And it did not.
I kind of had that visual in my head as well.
And then it had the decahedron with it too. The 12-sided
pulsing with power with handles on it.
I'm like, this is just like a boom box. Or not boom box, boom tube.
Yes.
Or mother box. Yeah, from Justice League. So I was like, that it just painted those visuals for me.
So once we get into it, they fight. They defeat what we would later find out as a drow.
And he went with, like, the purple, blue skin drow.
Yeah.
Opposed to, like, the black skin drow.
Yeah, so it was more blue. And, Jester was kind of fixing on that fact that it was blue skinned as well.
Yeah, a kindred spirit, if you will. So after a while, they capture him. They take him down. It was a tough fight for them. He got in some good licks. Used some different magic and stuff.
I liked what he wound up doing. Like, every time the drow was hit, it created this duplicate.
Yeah.
And then when he went to make attacks, like, the duplicate was able to make the attack for him. He wound up having a juxtaposition. So, like, the shadow image took the critical that Mollymauk had hit, as opposed to him doing it. So, like...
Well, he actually attacked the shadow figure. He called it out. He's like, I want to go after that one.
Well, no, in the later part of the fight, he attacked the drow. And he changed places with the shadow image, and the shadow image took the crit for the drow
and exploded.
And every time the shadow image got hit, it would just dissipate.
Okay, I might have confused that because at one point he actually specifically called out, "I'm attacking the shadow."
Yes, that
was
was
the very first one.
That was the first one, but later in the combat, it was like second or third time that happened. He was attacking the drow, trying to get the flank bonus. He rolls a natural 20. It's like, yeah! And it's like, all right, as he's rolling damage, it's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Because it's like, oh, man! But, I mean, I love those kind of things. So, like, part of me wants to be like, was this something that Matt came up with himself? Was this something he read somewhere? I love these things that you get to take something that's non-standard and put that in the combats, because these are the things that makes combat so much more interesting and enjoyable for not only the spectators, but like the players to see things that they weren't expecting.
So I also wonder how the Taliesin campaign setting affects how he writes his game now. Because, like, when they decided to do the campaign setting, it wasn't written before. It's like he did, like, gather a bunch of scattered notes and then re-remember stuff and fill in the blanks essentially and recreate a lot of stuff. So I wonder, like, now going forward, is like, oh well, this is a thing. Let me make sure I have it all just in case I don't have to do that again. So there was a lot of work with that stuff before. So then they go into the interrogation of the drow. Turns out they're after this item so that they can have this rebirth thing. It sounds really shady. Like, some of them are like, I don't care, it's not my problem. This doesn't have anything to do with us. And other ones are like, this is going to bite us in the ass.
It was very amusing to see the party dynamics on this. Like, and they were very well divided as to, like, should we kill him? Should we let him go? Should we let him have this dodecahedron? It was a little weird, and it was a heated debate, and like
one of many for the session.
Part of me who is that that gamer is like, well, I want to know what all the items are like, and it gets settled on. They give the guy the armor back, but they keep his sword, they keep his boots, they let him have the dodecahedron, and almost right away, like, he goes off, they hear the combat in the distance, the guards take him, and he dies. And it's like, oh.
But we're clear, at least. We didn't do it. It wasn't on us. And it is weird, too, because, like, is this, like, an invasion force that's going to happen? Is this something cataclysmic that could affect everyone? Like, some of the players and their characters were thinking this way, and others were like, it's not our problem, and some were, like you said, they're divided in what they're going to do. But not only that, some of them were like, hey, why don't we just keep the thing and we'll let him go? And they're like, no, because then he's going to be after us the whole time. And then I think it was Caleb is like, well, we either take it and kill him or we give it back and just let him go.
And it was interesting because, like, they looked at it as like, well, if we let him go without it, then he will be after us, and it will be his life's mission to end us. And Caleb was not willing to go down that road, and he put his foot down pretty firmly about those being the things.
Fjord was actually on his side too. He was like, well, yeah, I'm not for leaving an enemy at my back,
right,
as well. So yeah,
and like, Jester thought it was amusing, despite having a decent wisdom, being the cleric in the party. She went the whole ridiculous route of, but they need this to have babies.
yeah. And then Beau was like, we whooped his ass once, we'll whoop it again.
Not fully, taking into the whole aspect of the way drow typically work. I don't want a drow at my back.
Yeah,
ever.
And not only that, even their encounter with him, the combat, he was injured. He was wounded.
Yeah, and he still put up a pretty decent fight.
Yeah, so but they end up letting him free, and they give him back his thing. And they go their separate ways, and like Ted said, instantly we find out that he encounters the Watch. As they're leaving, they actually get caught, and they gave some story. The Watch kind of buys it. They let him go.
I think Matt was a little gracious because I think their persuasion roll wasn't all that great.
Yeah. It comes back to like some of the things that we say is like, well, if you're not going to make that matter mean anything, you might as well not bother and just role play it out, which is whatever you want to do at your table is fine, obviously.
So they get escorted out of the Tri-Spire, and they come upon the guards like parading this body around, and a couple of them carrying the dodecahedron, kind of like, very, very carefully. And we enter into yet another comical scene as they decide.
They each come up with a very elaborate plan to get it back, independent of each other, mind you.
So Jester decides she's going to go over and examine the body and accidentally trip to try and knock it out of the guard's hand.
Caleb disguises himself with an illusion spell. Beau takes to the rooftops, going total Batman on us. And, Fjord and Mollymauk are just kind of watching from a distance, trying to figure out where they can fit in. And as does Nott, but Nott does so in a much more meaningful way.
So eventually, despite a couple of attempts, finally Jester is able to make the guard lose control of the dodecahedron. Caleb, in his disguise, winds up catching it. And it's like, oh, no, don't drop it. And then begins slowly backing up to, I'm marching in step very slowly to try and, not be near everybody.
But they get caught. Nott creates a diversion. They eventually slip off.
Nott's diversion is awesome. He creates an extra one of these things with minor illusion, and it pulses, and then he winds up having this thing levitate into the air,
Then melt.
and then melt and rain down, causing many people to just back away and flee. This allows Caleb to actually eventually get away with this thing.
He has to like trick one of the guards. He's like he uses deception to kind of persuade him that this thing's gonna blow up. There's no need for us both to blow up.
He's like, this is the thing that caused that huge explosion in the Zephyr Spire or whatever the spire was called. I know it started with a Z. There's no reason for us both to die. And the other guard's like, that's a good point.
Yeah, so they do eventually get that taken care of, and then I believe next they actually go to look for Dolan, and they find him and Hastings actually packing up to split. Beau and Fjord go,
right.
and they each take a door essentially front and back and go in there, and they're like ready to skip town.
So, Dolan, like he convinces Dolan to stay in town. Dolan was the one that wanted to become the High Richter. It's like, if you cut and run, this whole plan has been for naught. You need to stay. And, they're like, well, this other guy at least has to get out of town. And they convince Fjord to actually take him back with them to be able to get him out of town.
And they also tell him what happened to Ulag and how he sacrificed himself. And then they figured out how they're not getting paid from Ulag as well.
So. Well, they got Ulag's money. They didn't get somebody else's money.
Oh, okay.
But
like I said, it was a lot to follow this episode.
There was a lot of money that they did wind up getting.
From the Drow.
Well, they got 116 platinum from the Drow, but they got the bulk of what they were going to get from the Knights of Requital, and they got it. Well, Fjord got it all before Beau showed up. So as of the last time they mentioned it on screen, Fjord was like, "Yeah, I have it." So like it didn't go into the party treasure that Jester has been typically carrying, or Laura has been
she's
typically
been keeping track of the inventory,
and that actually holds true for like Campaign 1. She was the party treasure person.
These guys are just shady as fuck.
So who knows what's going to wind up happening with that? It's going to eventually, I think, come to a head. They're going to have a conversation about it, and Fjord may or may not disclose. Who knows?
Yeah, and they also went back to, what is it, the leaky tap?
The leaky tap.
Where
not the leaky nipple. The leaky nip.
Yeah. Where Jester tries to find a lead box, right? Unsuccessfully. She does get a strong box, but she doesn't get a lead-lined one, and also learns that
the owner, Claudia, I think, is already sold the tavern, knowing full well that there's been something going on with the Knights of Requital and the association that the meetings have been typically held in her place. So she sold it and is planning to get out of Dodge herself.
Yeah, essentially the shit has hit the fan that night, and she's like, "Yep, it's too hot, gotta go." But she's like, "Hey, don't worry, I sold it to a really good friend. It's going to be okay. It's going to be in good hands." Of course, this good friend, she has to read the bill of sale in order to know the name of the person. So shadiness all around. Like I haven't watched the first campaign. I've just watched this one. You are watching the first one.
I think I'm up through the first 21 episodes at this point.
So are they a lot more shadier this time around?
I think so. Like the fact that like we're only on 13 episodes with this one. The last time they had gotten from whatever level they started all the way to 9th level before things started airing on Geek and Sundry. It was a pre-existing, I believe, Pathfinder game, and they converted over to 5e. So like there was already all of the typical beginning campaign shit figured out before they went on air, and they were very much a cohesive fighting unit from episode 1. I mean, they had,
and now like they're building towards this. Actually, this session in particular, you saw them really build towards it hard. Like it wasn't smooth sailing building. But they were working towards that end for sure. And like like after they actually got the artifact, the party split up so much in different directions because Caleb went to the other place where the secret basement was with the body to kind of like stash it.
And while he was down there, they kind of pulled Nott aside, and they like, we got a beef with the way you guys are operating, and they kind of grilled her hard. And this is where we get like a major revelation about the dynamics with this particular duo.
Well, I think goes a little deeper than that too. Not only do we find out about the relationship, but it also tells you something a lot more about Nott. I guess an outsider might assume that, Caleb was more of the controlling force and was kind of in charge. And it also goes to show that the way Sam is playing Nott, she's actually way more devious than I was giving her credit for.
Right.
A lot of, I feel like a lot of the stuff that, Nott has been doing has been a facade at this point now.
Right. So we find out that, like, she goes into it. It's like, oh, there is definitely the parent-child relationship here, but she's like, you got it wrong. Caleb is my son, and it's like, the jaws just drop.
Yeah, I look at Caleb as a son. I protect him.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. Here I looked at it as like, okay, well, the two of them got this whole, parent-child relationship, and I'm like, yeah, I totally see that. And total reversal when it's like, yeah, I'm the parent. It's like, what the and it was really cool, and it's like, look, I want to see him grow. I want to see all the things that he's going to do. He's going to be great, and I want to make that happen. And as a parent myself, I'm like, I know these emotions. I know the things that Nott is saying.
But even from that standpoint, though, we know Nott is also still using Caleb as well. Like, ultimately, Caleb is an ends to a means, I think. Like, she's running from something really dangerous, and she needs a powerful wizard to solve that problem.
Well, we suspect, based on earlier things, but how much of that was just a bold-faced lie, and how much?
Well, she was charmed.
Oh, that's true.
She was charmed, so she had to. So she would have been compelled to tell the truth,
that's
or
true.
at least
that's true.
Most of the truth.
So, I mean, yeah, we're gonna see where things go, and I feel that this is definitely building blocks and steps to really unify this party together, where I think the last two sessions things have been on rocky grounds, especially considering everybody else and Caleb and Nott, because like they haven't really been the team that, say, campaign 1 has been. So, but I mean, the fact that they're...
And Beau's always been iffy, too. It's like, where does she fall in all of this?
See, I think she just kind of rolls, kind of goes with the punches.
I don't think so, man. I think she's holding back some stuff as well.
Well,
she's got an agenda.
She's got something going on with the gentleman, and she's got something going on with the monk order. But, like, I don't know.
She's like hiding that stuff behind the bro facade. That's my call on that. We definitely were seeing some more stuff. Also, the fun part was when after Nott and the group have this like big hubbub, right? This big to do. And they're like, oh, and by the way, can you take this stuff and have Caleb identify it? And then Jester's like, she's going to steal all of our stuff now. We were mean to her. So that was funny, which brings us to the next kind of scene where they're in the basement and they decide, that, well, one, Nott hands over the scroll case and there's like this tender moment between Nott and Caleb again.
And it's like, I stole this for you.
Yeah. And,
you went back, after the fireball, you snuck back upstairs to get the scrolls. That was a pretty awesome moment to have there.
And then Nott's like, aren't you going to open it? And Caleb's, no, we're not going to open that yet. And we didn't even touch on like something that happened earlier when Caleb first tried to look at that artifact.
Oh, well, when he first looked at the dodecahedron with handles and pulsing with power, he looks at it with like identify, and it's like you're staring off into nothing.
It begins to mindfuck him, essentially, is what happens.
And
everyone else is trying to convince him to keep pushing.
And Matt's like, how far do you go down this rabbit hole? And it's like, yeah, I'm good here. We're going to just stop.
And everyone is just egging him on to keep going. They want to see him lose his mind.
Yeah, it's to me, it reminds me of the old campaign with the death rolls.
Yeah, the White Book of Death, Doom, and, there's more adjectives the worse it got. But, and then jumping back to what we're talking about, and, Cal is like, well, wait a minute, we don't want to just open this. And they,
So he puts it outside, casts Unseen Servant, and has the servant open it up. What is it? Does he have a name for the servant? Do you remember?
He does, and it starts with a G, but I don't know what it is.
All right, so he has a servant. He's like, okay, in 10 seconds, open this. And he closes the door, and you hear this, poof.
Yeah.
As he opens the door, the unseen servant is not there because it can't survive a single point of damage, and all this billowing fog and cloud or something,
dust,
is rising up from it, and the servant is gone.
Yeah, I thought the scrolls were going to be gone too, but nope, they survived.
They survived. We don't know exactly what they were just yet.
But Caleb was really happy.
Caleb was really happy about it.
And then he goes on to identify the gear. They get some cool stuff.
You got boots that add once a day a D8 to your initiative, and a pretty cool longsword that sadly is not a finesse weapon, so Molly could not use it.
Yeah. So and then they both Nott and Caleb spend the night in the cellar, and some really cool stuff happened. But before we get to that, let's have a little word from our sponsors.
Ourselves.
Us. So if you'd like to support the channel and check out some really cool things that Nerdarchy is doing, you can check out the merchandise over at the Nerdarchy store, like the Roll-A-Pair shirt. Go check that out. And now back to that cool stuff that was happening down in the cellar.
So it's at this time that Matt actually asks everybody but Caleb to leave the table, and I love these moments. I kind of miss them, for us when we stream games and we do stuff.
Do you miss when everyone's like, "Ooh, you're gonna die"? Ooh. No, we never did that. We just followed out. Actually, with us, it was the other way around. The DM and the player would just leave.
Would leave the table,
and then the rest of us would just eat pizza or something.
So, I miss those moments of all right, well, we're gonna have these private things those these days just tend to happen via Messenger on Facebook between sessions. But he pulls Caleb, or he has Caleb there alone, and he starts going into this whole dreamscape sequence of what happens when Caleb sleeps that night.
And there's just all these different Calebs that appear from him. They all look slightly different, and and it's very kind of cosmic, like the dream. Nerdarchy Dog actually has a theory that Matt's going to introduce void magic through this somehow, and that's where we're headed.
So I mean, there is the Kobold Press void magic. I don't know whether Matt is taking inspiration there, whether he's creating his own stuff, but only time will tell. I'm pretty interested. I like it when these little nuances happen, and I get to see where Matt's going with his stories. Pretty exciting.
And then it's kind of funny too. As they're doing stuff, they kept forgetting that Haston was with them. I don't even know if I'm saying the right name. It's something like that. And at one point, Fjord tries to escort him out of the city and help him get out. But they're everything is locked down. The guards are checking everybody, if you're on a list or not on a list. So they just decide to keep going.
So the guards are, doing pat downs and interrogating anyone who's looking to leave. So Fjord and this guy are walking, and they kind of nonchalantly, circle the block and decide, you know what? We're not going to leave town just now. It's not a wise idea.
So, yeah, so they give it up. And then, one of the next things that happens is they go shopping for a lead box. Then they decide, wait a minute, we can just get a lead line box. And it'll be a little bit cheaper. And I think they go to, isn't it a halfling blacksmith?
They go to a halfling blacksmith. And
something
it's
Sparks. Sparks Hammer? Hammer Sparks?
I don't remember the name, unfortunately.
I know Sparks is in the name, though.
But, she pays him, and it's it's going to be 48 hours, and it's 1.5 gold, not anything that's a big deal, considering how much they just got. She pays up front. They leave. They decide to go to Pumat Sol next, and I think I think Pumat Sol is going to be their typical Gilmores for this particular game. It's a reference to campaign 1. And they love going here because he's hysterical to roleplay, I would imagine.
Which one? Puman Sol, Puman Sol Prime,
Well,
or
Puma Soul is prime, and then his simulacrum. Yeah. But I always love every time they go and he just starts like, oh, well, this one's sitting there reading, this one's sitting there knitting. And it's like, he's knitting, really?
and also, yeah, also in this episode, because of the book that he's reading, it's a huge Easter egg from campaign 1. I didn't quite get it, but I understood because, but I knew it was from it.
Right.
Have you gotten to that spot?
I have not gotten to that thing. I did not understand the reference.
But one day you're going to have an epiphany as you're catching up.
One day I will. I have to make sure I write that name down so that once it actually comes up, it's going to be amusing to see that they can act.
So they got in there. They buy a bunch of different stuff. Nott commissions a flask to be made that produces alcohol continuously.
So yeah,
they get a box.
You've got the decanter of endless water, and he wants a decanter of endless alcohol. And for 250 gold, he is like abso-freaking-lutely, or she technically.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty amusing thing. They got the box, which is a little bit more expensive than what the halfling was willing to offer, but they got to pay for a new box to be made, the box that's there, and the consequences of whatever was in the box not being in the box anymore. So
yeah, and also Cal got a couple more scrolls. One of them was a cantrip, and it seemed like Matt was going to let him put it in his book. So that would lead me to believe, or actually put it on his list, of cantrips.
So that enters into a situation where, all right, that's a rules question. If you have X number of spells that you're able to cast, would you allow a wizard to say, well, I'm allowed to cast 4 different cantrips a day? Can I learn more and change them out? Or if I learn a new cantrip, does it just get added to my list and I now know them all? So that becomes a rules question. And that's something that I looked at as I was watching. And I then questioned, okay, well, what do I do here? Sorcerers and wizards function very differently. Sorcerers have access to more cantrips than wizards do, but they are locked in. If you allow wizards to switch out or to just learn more, that begins to change the dynamics. So
I actually, a while back, a couple of years ago, actually, when I was writing on the website, I created the Cantrip Master, right? It's like a feat that kind of allows you to do just that, swap them out. And I might have even made more than one. I might have made it a tree of 2 or something. Literally, it was a couple of years ago, so I don't remember exactly what I did. But I did do a thing where you could, get more cantrips and have access to more cantrips. Is it a big deal? However Matt does it? No, not really. I mean, there's other ways to add cantrips to your character. There's quite a few ways actually. So it's not a big deal, but it is an interesting rules thing when we get to peek at another dungeon master and see how they're doing things, especially a dungeon master that's so highly regarded and is in the public eye like that as well.
So that is something that I did look at. I did find appreciation, again, as you say, to see how another DM is doing it.
Then they finally get around to giving out the magic items that they had. They're like, oh, by the way, we have this stuff. And this again, they found a magic weapon that they're just kind of they're not even going to sell this one. They're just kind of holding it.
So Fjord looked at it and he's like, I'm kind of attached with, this one. And he's more about the two-handed falchion that he's using. So it's not attributed to anything magic other than the fact that it's his thing,
his pack weapon,
his packed weapon, and it's not finesse. So Molly's not really interested in using it.
Yasha uses a greatsword, but he's saving it for her just in case.
So he puts it in his pack, and the way it was described,
This is actually one of the things I don't like about the campaign is how they do the magic items.
Uh-huh.
Like, because they hand it to the player, so like you have to like kind of like figure it out. Like I find this as to be a pain in the ass in the game itself when I play and run, and as a viewer, I like it doesn't create more suspense for me. It becomes more like an annoyance. Like just tell me what it freaking is already. Yeah, and it's like you said, like against certain it was not like against magical beasts or something. It's better. Like, and a lot of times they're vague and they don't even really tell you that much about it. So we don't know what it is. We just know it's probably better than anything they've got right now. So they're holding on to it just in case kind of deal. Now the boots on the other hand, that is a magic item that it seems like Matt made up, and we do kind of know what they do unless there's other properties.
Right. Yeah. We know that it adds a D8 once a day to an initiative roll. Once a day. Not bad. And when he was looking at it, he's like anybody would really benefit from this. And it's a boot slot. I don't know how Matt plays with or doesn't play with attunement. I think he does use the rules, but I know in the first campaign, like he was still talking about like headspaces or like slot items. So like it's like, oh well, you already got a headspace item there, so you can't use this one as well. And it's like that's interesting. That was a.
Well, that's probably just transitioning from one edition to another.
Right.
That the learning curve.
Oh, absolutely. Now the sword, the way it was described, I'm like, well, it's kind of a curved weapon, and there's not a huge difference between scimitar and longsword. So like, there's times like I would just
fuck that. It can't be a scimitar. Another drow does not need another scimitar. We cannot have this.
Dear Lord. So like. I would be willing to bend the rules a little bit. It's like, okay, it's slightly curved. So is it a saber that can have finesse? It's a saber. Is that okay?
Well, it would be a die 8 weapon then, not a die 6. That would be the difference. That would be kind of like the difference. The scimitar does less damage, I believe.
Yeah, whatever. So like, I'm willing to bend and twist the rules to allow my PCs to be able to better use the magic items that I'm putting out there. I mean,
he's just got to get it. Why didn't they do the transfer again?
Because it's a lot of money to do that.
It was like 80 gold. It was actually cheap.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
No, that's the other thing. Like we didn't even touch on. Like the magic items are kind of cheap that they're buying. Like, oh my god, it's so much, but it was like 250 gold for a magic shield or something.
Oh, you would flip shit if you've seen what they charge for some of the items in the first campaign. He charged them like 1,500 gold for like a one of the stat tubes.
I'm like. A +1 magic shield. That should be a king's ransom. So, I'm a little more stingy with my magic items. But again, it's Matt's campaign. He can play it however he wants.
Absolutely.
But I found like he's like selling this stuff all willy nilly. So that brings us to like the conclusion. The end was actually a pretty good cliffhanger.
So they decide they're going to go to. The something nip.
I don't remember either. The other place.
they go to the other tavern, the one that they'd went to before, that they know that they have, a connection to the gentleman, which is something that has only loosely been talked about on the show, and it has to do with some of the characters, if not just one of them, the backstory.
Well, no, wasn't that the letter they found when Beau stole the packages?
Okay, all right.
That's where that actually stems from. I believe.
I thought it was linked to her backstory.
No, I think it's linked to her specifically because she found the letters, and then they so that got them curious, and then they found the halfling. They found the information.
They found the halfling in the sewers. They interrogated him. Once Nott started canting with him, they got some information and a specific phrase that's supposed to be said at this tavern, and they go and they deliver the tavern. They deliver this message, and it's like, oh, so the bartender heads behind to another doorway, and they follow. And they go down.
At first, they didn't know what to do. They're like, "Are we followed? Do we stay? What do we do?" And they're like, "We're following. Yeah, let's follow."
And they find this black furred tabaxi, all decked out in fancy clothes, and that's where they end the session.
Not quite.
Oh.
The tabaxi dialogues at Mollymauk.
Oh, that's right. And he's and knows him.
He
calls some name. And everybody's like, oh, is Mollymauk not your real name? Like there's so many secrets.
And it was also kind of like you're alive kind of thing, right? Like the surprise to see him. And it seemed like happy to see him as well.
Yeah.
So and Mollymauk is like, or Taliesin like has no idea what's going on. So it's great. It's going to be a great place to pick up next week.
So I continue to be excited about these little transitions. I love the little cliffhangers, sometimes big, sometimes not, that he likes to end his sessions on. It's pretty darn awesome.
Yeah, it was a good session all in all. There was tons going on. It's super busy. Question is, guys, what did you think of episode 13 from campaign 2? We got a place where we can talk about it down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.